final site plan and special permit, 90 East Putnam Avenue.
Ready? Good evening. Eric Brower on behalf of the Helsum Company, who's the property owner, and Whole Foods, who is the tenant who's making the application this evening. I'm here tonight with Sid Smith, Whole Foods attorney, as well as our project architect and several store representatives in case you have questions. What I'd like to do from the beginning is to characterize the nature of the project very clearly, because there was an article today in one of the papers that whose headline read that we were the expansion of Whole Foods, and it's actually a conversion. So the Whole Foods space is increasing by 1,200 square feet, but it's a conversion of existing. Pardon me?
That is an expansion, Mr. Brower.
Well, the store is converting retail space to its use.
Yes, but the Whole Food store is expanding.
It is increasing its size, and we're decreasing
Really?
an equal amount of retail. So
But it's not 1,200 feet. That repeated usage of 1,200 feet is not correct. It's 3,800 square feet that's being converted, because the Whole Body Works is a retail shop. It's not part of the supermarket right now, and on our
She's absolutely right.
on our materials, it's 3,800 square feet of additional space together with basement space. That's what is being changed from retail, is it not?
Those numbers are correct. 15,695 is the existing supermarket.
Right.
2,500 is the existing Whole Body, which is, once it's incorporated into the Whole Foods floor plan, it will become supermarket, although it be the exact same product, sales, and display that's there currently. So you can add up the numbers that way. I just wanted to characterize that it is not an overall expansion as others may have characterized it. So I think we're on the same page as to what the numbers are. And the 1,200 square feet is the retail area that we're talking about that's separating currently the store and the Whole Body portion. So the footprint itself does not change. There's a question about the basement, and we're not making any changes to the basement. I'll hand you out now a copy of our administrative site plan that was granted back in September 16th, 2010, wherein there was a reconfiguration of space beneath the Whole Body basement and the Whole Foods basement space, where certain functions were switched around as part of a first floor renovation of space in the supermarket itself. So there was actually, with that, a net loss of 132 usable square feet in that basement area. So there was previously, in 2010, 966.6 square feet, which was reconfigured, reallocated, and wound up with 834.6 square feet.
And is there basement under what was the variety store?
Yes.
So that's new area, is that right?
As far as I know, that's going to be for storage, which then would not count in the usable.
Is it correct that there was not a floor plan submitted for the basement area? Sure, no problem.
Yeah, we did not submit it because there aren't any changes. We can resubmit an existing conditions plan for the record if you would like that, but we're not changing the approved layout for those uses.
Can you tell us the plan? Oh, this is just for the record, what is the number on this site plan for 2010?
PLPZ 2010000252.
Thank you.
a series of documents attached to that sign-off that included details on the handicap parking that were to be in the front and the side. Those were prepared by Granoff's office, and the other use diagrams that you're looking at on the second page was prepared by James DeBarbieri, the Whole Foods architect.
In that site plan, it's,
Here, mine's on.
can you hear me now? In that site plan, was that outdoor tent that you're selling plants and seasonal items on it?
That showed not as designated for parking or otherwise, so it was kind of
Do you have a permit for that?
I'm not sure.
Okay, then.
The answer appears to be no, and we would make application for same.
Yeah, because it's retail space.
Yeah, you hold on to it, you need it. Don't give it, don't give it,
And a structure.
and a structure, but you know that.
So we will comply with whatever the seasonal tent operation regulations will permit. The staff report that was provided to you goes through a number of issues, and most importantly includes traffic information that was provided not only by our traffic consultant, but comments from Melissa Evans within the DPW, as well as comments from James Ford and the Beta Group, who reviewed our traffic report on behalf of the town. And what I think is significant with what he's concluded, since he's your engineer, is that there'll be relatively small increase in any of the increase in traffic. There'll be no degradation of level of service at critical movements. He undertook a review of the traffic crash history data that was provided and found no evidence that the patterns were associated with the Whole Foods operation. So there was consensus on that. In addition to those reports, in the staff report that went out yesterday, we provided a letter report from Frederick P. Clark, August 28, 2015, where he clarifies his report by taking credit for the existing 1,200 square feet of retail that was not taken into account during his original trip generation analysis. The store was vacant at the time, but he has different estimates of what might have occurred at a retail store of that size based on ITE generation, and it changes the number of peak hour trips from 15 to 10, and could even be less depending on the specifics of that retail store.
The drawing was unclear, at least the elevation drawing that we had was unclear. Is the floor elevation of the existing whole body the same elevation as the supermarket, or is it?
No, that was a good observation yesterday, and it's,
Of course it was.
and it's as always, and it was not clear from that. The floor plan is correct in that it reads that it's flat.
So you're going to
and
build it up?
It'll be raised, right? So the doors will be replaced with windows.
Right.
And the floor will run continuous from the supermarket through the,
I'm going to say it's going to be quite a trip.
yes. So we don't want ramps or stairs or whatever, so it'll be uniform. The other thing that came up at the briefing session that had been requested earlier was that we revisit what the traffic circulation pattern is on site, that the problems weren't necessarily occurring at the intersection points, but rather how things worked internally. Melissa Evans had made her comments that we should look at reversing the traffic flow off of East Putnam coming into being counterclockwise. And then, again, as an astute observation, Mr. Maitland pointed out that there could be economies created with the double loading of 90-degree aisles. And it turned out that certainly was the case.
Option one, you mean, right?
So, yeah, so we have 4 options.
You're going to go through each of those?
Yes. So they have certainly pros and cons. Some of them gain spaces, parking spaces actually, and others reduce parking spaces. The option one actually picks up 2 over the existing condition and provides for two-way circulation in both of the main aisles. So that certainly cleans things up and increases the number of spaces. The option number 2 is a combination of Melissa Evans' suggestion that we reverse the flow, but also utilizing the double loading on the eastern portion of the traffic circulation here. So these dimensions are based on what the Town of Greenwich regulations are for 90-degree double and single loaded bays and traffic aisles and backouts. Option 3 is the one that Melissa actually suggested, which is reversing the flow and changing the angle of the spaces to accommodate the new flow. That works out where we wind up losing 3 parking spaces, actually. And then,
Who did these, by the way?
pardon me?
Did you have a specialist do these?
Yes, this is,
Sorry, did you have a specialist do this?
yes, the layout on options 1 through 3 was done by our architect, James DeBarbieri,
Your architect?
yes, who is here this evening if you have questions of him. And the last page, prepared by S.E. Minor, indicates a total different way of looking at it in terms of having multiple aisles that allow for more circulation throughout. That winds up in a reduction of 4 parking spaces.
I think we should start with the premise that we don't want to come up with any plans that reduce parking.
Good idea.
Okay, so we can toss out a couple, and the 2 that gain parking, I think it's a matter of, it's a matter of a one-way circulation versus a two-way circulation, and I think that's an area that I don't personally feel comfortable to have the expertise in that, and I think that's either working with Melissa or working with your architect if he is an expert in the traffic flow and so on. Normally, two-way traffic gives you more options.
Right.
One-way forces everybody into one movement, and I think I just find that restricting. I would personally go with the two-way flow, but I'm not an expert. So I think, but both of those do gain spaces.
Correct.
And I think that's an important thing. So as far as I'm concerned, either 1 or 2, whichever one works best from a traffic standpoint.
Yeah, and that certainly, that would be, I mean, we would certainly want or accept a condition of approval that it include staff, Melissa, and if Beta, Jim Ford wants to weigh in on it.
That's good, too.
To make that, you know. The main thing, Melissa, was the reason she liked the reverse flow one way was that she felt that it was better for people coming in, not be
Bad
faced with...
movement at that corner down
Right.
there.
So she wanted to reduce decisions so that there'd be less hesitation, people
But
would
by
come
having
in.
it either one-way reverse coming that way, then you get rid of that conflict movement.
Exactly.
Or having it 2 ways, you get rid of that conflict
Exactly.
movement for a
You
large
end up with
portion of it, so.
a traffic jam on exiting with the two-way movement.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think Beta should chime in as well.
You know, and just a couple of things. First of all, you're going to get a permit for that tent, but you've got handicap spot parking in where you're going to get it. So you're going to have to make a decision whether you're going to comply with the handicap parking requirements or you're going to continue having that outdoor retail space. But I think everybody in town is an expert on the fact that this parking lot is, yes, it stinks. Everybody hates it, and you know, you're laughing. Everybody in town could speak extensively.
Smiling, not laughing.
Yeah, but everybody would speak to, and there are 2 issues with it. The one is, the one that Richard just raised about that coming out on the post road, and the other one is just the flow in the lot is scary. And I don't think there's a person in town who will say to you, oh yeah, I go to Whole Foods and it's such an easy experience to get it in and out of that lot. So we should have Beta look at this.
Yes,
And any other thoughts on what is the best way to accomplish good flow and address that,
Well, this was,
One or two.
it was done in '03 in good faith to address the concerns.
yeah,
Garrow met
it's
everybody.
never gets fixed.
It's certainly worth a fresh look.
It's going to
In
get,
conjunction with what Margarita said, Mr. Bauer, yes. It seems to me that you only have so much space, and there's only so much parking, and maybe it's not ideal. You do have an area just north of the parking. Is that just vacant land?
it's R6.
Yeah.
You can't put commercial use in an R6 zone.
There's a zone line that actually runs through
So
the property. So this, if you can make out, and it shows, I think, on your
It
reductions,
switches from CGBR, you can
Right.
see it.
to
there's no way- there's
And-
no
R6.
kind of-
And the other
They
thing,
already violated with what they got, and to violate it even more, that's the first thing I looked at.
and the other thing is that this use
So
has
you can't
been
do it.
a huge issue in the surrounding neighborhood,
Right.
because it's
and-
so intensive.
And part of the awkwardness is getting in and getting out. It's, thankfully, it's an area that is congested, and that almost works in your favor in that traffic moves slowly by. So, but nonetheless, it does take a little patience to get in and out. And it would be really wonderful to be able to rethink the traffic pattern out on the street, creating a turning lane or something, and take away the parking along the sidewalk there. There's not many spaces, and then maybe even adding a few extra spaces internally as a result. But I was hoping that there was some way to accommodate that with but you say the R6 doesn't really allow you to do anything
You
there.
can have no commercial use in it.
And there's no way to change the zoning?
We're not going from residential to commercial.
And the other problem is that, see, that
We'll go the other way, we'll go commercial to residential. We're not
if you were using that rear
violate
parking,
the POCD and
if you were using that rear parking,
Wait a second. We're not violating the POCD. If
Plus we're violating our-
if we're creating a better and
no,
safer
because the
environment.
No,
first
I think
mandate is
that's-
that is the commercial to residential.
It's,
But
I think it's
the
even
other
part of the
issue-
I
regulations.
understand, but we have to think about this more globally.
But see, the other issue that
well,
we're not
let him
discussing
finish,
it.
let him
yeah.
finish.
So, yes, I understand that our regulations say something, but I'm just curious about how the regulations don't always give us the best options in a situation like this. But anyway, going on.
Just, Peter, just on this, another point is that if you were to rely more heavily on that northern parking, you force the exit onto Washington, and the people who live in that residential neighborhood already have a major problem with what happens on Washington, and how congested it is, and how it impacts their residential area. So we don't really want to encourage people to exit out the back there.
Oh, right, I understand that. I was just thinking that, externally on
Well,
the
it's a-
site, there's an opportunity.
It's a good
to create
question, but it's a
to create a turning lane on
Yeah, but you-
Putnam.
Yeah,
and
that I
can-
like a lot.
or something that just organizes the flow a little bit and allows things to move a little bit more easily, so you don't have, because otherwise you're always constantly waiting for someone to turn in.
Yeah, I don't know how the work within Route 1 right away would work. I mean,
Well,
it's a
I'm not
state
saying that-
road, somebody's got metered spaces.
But anything,
Review.
and so therefore, the only thing to look at is internally, and I
Yes.
was saying that the space is quite limited. And that's really unfortunate unless you want to go to some kind of stacked parking, which nobody's worked that out yet, so.
So it's a matter of I think we agree, and I was smiling when Margarita was making her comments, not laughing, because yes, we all know that it's a tight site and needs improvement. So we are fortunate to have come up with two solutions that certainly make it more organized, should be safer, increases the number of parking stalls, and even eliminates in both of those options, if you notice, down at the lower left-hand corner of the site plan, which are the more problematic. So we would certainly agree to that as a condition, to have that agreed to by your consultants and certainly implemented prior to any certificate of occupancy. The other The only other thing, we're going to ARC tomorrow night, just for the windows and the rooftop mechanicals, which is all pretty straightforward. And the last item is the Health Department is making its way through our very extensive review, and we would also ask that that could be something that would be approved, subject to prior to seeking a zoning
Okay.
permit.
Everybody done? I have a couple of questions. This traffic report, I mean, Mr. Brower, my impression here is you're working very hard to do something about this parking, which is an improvement. So really, I'm just going to say these things for the record, so that this is not. The crash report shows for the years 2011 to 2013, 26 accidents in that one block area. This question was raised at our meeting yesterday, and because Beta said there's no connection, we moved on. And I would say that is a remarkable conclusion, because the data, I think, is let me see, 288. And it's people not yielding, crossing over, it's all sorts of, so for example, on 288, the last paragraph talks about 92% of the accidents, no, that's not important. The majority involve turning vehicles, intersecting paths. I mean, to say that that's unconnected with this site seems remarkable. It's the major movement in that block. We all go through there daily, and 23% of the accidents involve vehicles, side swipes, vehicles failing, 50% vehicles failing to grant the right-of-way. I think that it would be hard to conclude that it has nothing to do with this site.
Well, I think, at least my understanding of this report on the accidents are between Washington and Marr, which includes a number of curb cuts in addition
It does.
to ours, which is, you have double curb cut with the gas station across the street, we have Sherwood, and then you've got another commercial establishment, and you have a tremendous amount of on-site parallel, I'm not saying on-street parallel
Right,
parking
right.
that is a very difficult maneuver. So I think that's where the conclusion came from. I would like to just add on to that, since you mentioned it. We did find out from Whole Foods and the landlord the on-site accident data, and in the last 3 years there were only 4 accidents on site. 3 involved fenders scraping each other, and the other one was someone who drove through the front of Starbucks using a
Right.
drive-in that didn't exist.
And the
He'd
other,
already had his daily caffeine.
So
the other piece of this traffic report that, repeatedly says the same thing, and then it's picked up by Beta, is that this is a 1,200 square foot addition, and it's 3,800 feet of addition, and the calculations are all done ignoring the fact that Whole Body Works is a retail store right now and not used as a supermarket. So I just don't understand how that approach was taken when it's 3,800 square feet of additional space to this supermarket.
Okay. Well, the 1,200 is definitely broken out and addressed by the letter dated August 28th. So there we at
Good.
least are getting retail to
But
that.
the report, the traffic report does all the analysis on the basis of 1,200 square feet, and it's 3,800. And so I think that that's highly problematical. I think that because of your willingness, your client's willingness to go at this parking and hopefully improve it, that those things are not of great significance at this point. But one of the data points was that there's nothing really going out in the actual count day they did from the back of this lot where there's a mandatory right turn only onto Washington Drive. I don't think, are they allowed to maybe they are allowed to turn left there.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That point is,
Yes.
they could turn left.
It switches from two-way to one-way right at that. It's not totally clear to you if you're there looking
Yeah.
at the signs, but you're allowed to go left
Left.
that way.
Because if there was no left turn and there was a plan to have more of the traffic go out that way and turn right only, if you will, I mean, that just to get some of the exit out of the main,
The problem is, though, it's always the left turn.
yeah,
So whether the left turn comes out of the entrance over here, or whether you put it over on Washington and they try to make the left turn there down by the Y, it's still the same left turn. Same way going in.
but it's
It's the
not all
left turn.
sitting in the same spot then. I don't know, I just think that should be looked at. That's all.
But I mean, anybody can do it right now, Nancy. I mean, there's no stopping anybody from going through this back area. They may not use it. They might find it's not a great way to do it, but anyway, there's nothing that would prohibit you from doing that now. So if you
Yep,
use
and
it.
in fact, a while ago, there was a restriction on the left turn, and I thought that it was still there, and I actually asked Melissa Evans, I guess time flies when you're having fun, because she wrote me that there was that restriction years ago, but the Board of Selectmen approved the removal of the left turn restriction in May 2005.
In what year?
2005.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe we could recommend that it be reinstated as part of this solution here, so that whatever is going is not going into the neighborhood.
I think
It's tough.
this is all being sort of done above our
No, I mean, we're not doing this, I understand that. And, those are just perhaps of our pay grade.
I am
Well,
impressed
what do
with
you
the
mean you're not
reduction in
doing this?
accidents.
Because
Reduction in accidents. You said 4 in the last, what period of time?
4 and 3 years on site,
on-site.
on the property itself.
On the property itself.
Those are reported though, but I mean, what happens out there, it's, yeah.
But I don't, all we
It's
can
not
do, I
reported.
think all we can do is try to get the best flow that we can possibly
We're
get
willing
and make it work.
That's
to
what
do.
we can
The best we can do, and if people can't drive, they can't
Katie, are
drive.
you saying we ought to be doing more in terms of our job on this?
Well, I was going to suggest we wait to the end of the I was thinking to myself to wait to the end of the public comment to bring that up, because 612E essentially says that the no zoning permit for any non-residential building should be issued, and no parking area should be constructed, resurfaced, extended, or altered as to layout for use with an existing non-residential use, except in accordance with the site plan approved by the commission or director of planning and zoning. So it could go either way. That's why I was going to bring it up at the end of where we are and see what everyone thought about it at that time.
No, but they are submitting a site plan for the change of the parking.
Right, but they have one now, but from the terminology that Mr. Brower is using, I get the impression that he wants action tonight and deal with this later, so I may have misread your comments, but,
Well, I mean, we have the site layout, we have the original, we've responded to suggestions. It's out of our control, so we will defer to your consultants and staff and your experts on which of these you want to
I mean, if the approval was
implement.
option 1 or option 2, to be resolved, by meetings with Beta
Mhm.
and Melissa Evans, who else would you want them to meet with?
perhaps the public would like input as to
The
what
public
happens
can
as...
have input. They've presented option 1 and 2, so this is a site plan application tonight. Why wouldn't, if the public
Because-
is here, they could comment on these?
Right, but if you're intending to decide on that layout tonight without the input from Beta and DPW, is my point. It would be unusual.
Do you feel,
Well,
all right, well,
But that's why I'm saying, if you want to defer to a later time, I mean, I could handle it if that's how the commission feels about that, and I'm comfortable with that. That's why I was thinking we should wait until the end of public comment in case something's raised that we're not thinking of.
All right, that makes sense. Let's hear from the public and
I'd like,
I'm just trying to get clarification. In the new store layout, you made reference that you're only expanding 1,200 of new space. With that statement, that assumes that the store of the 2,600 is going to be 2,600 in the new footprint of the health and beauty or whatever?
Well, those square feet displaying those products are going to be reconfigured
Right,
within
so
the new.
can you give me department by department current square footage and what the proposed is? Because I don't see in your floor plans you're going to use 2,600 for beauty goods. It looks like it's going to be expanded to food and other prepared items. So the request is department by department square footages.
I'm going to ask the architect if he has an idea on it.
We certainly can do that, but I'm...
Hold it, what's your name, sir?
Sorry. James DeBarbieri. Okay. We certainly can do that, but I'd need to go through a calculation on it. It's fairly detailed if you want each department compared to what's existing to what's new. I can't do it here for you.
I think the point would be, though, from a parking generation point of view, it's a wash. They're the same regulations per square foot for retail or supermarket. So then it's a question of, would any particular blend of use and display of retail product generate a different traffic level? And
My concern is with these grocery stores, your prepared foods is turning into a restaurant. And you're expanding those uses, and I want to see, right now it's pretty limited, but your new layout looks like it's expanding, and it's turning into more of expanding, and it's turning into more of a facility than a restaurant takeout facility than a grocery store, and I just want to see those square footages.
That's interesting. What's your response to that? That's
well, I
interesting.
guess
What-
it would,
Can you go through your floor plan for the proposed uses?
can we do that, Jim? Okay. We'll have the architect take you through that.
Well, he's got it laid out, it's just they don't identify what it is. The layout's right there, so if he can just tell us what it is. It may not compare it to the existing, but at least we'll know what he's going to do.
How many copies?
I have copies here of a handout that may help to show you where the departments, it doesn't have the square footage you're looking for, but it will.
I don't think I get it from this.
Well, he's going to explain it to us.
Could you explain it?
Sure. I know it's a small scale, but the left plan is the plan of the existing store. You can see the main store of Whole Body is on the left end and actually takes over a portion of the smaller store, the narrower portion. You see a blank space to the right of that. That's the takeover space. And the final space to the right of that is the Whole Body space.
There's a what?
The whole body.
The Whole Body space, that's the
Right, that's correct.
personal care and
Right.
cosmetic. The right plan is the reconfigured store. The differences are, and they're going to redo the entire store. This is going to be a renovation, an update to the entire store. Maybe a little difficult to see, but on the existing conditions, the checkouts are going up and down on the left side of the store. On the new store, those checkouts are going to be along the front, parallel with East Putnam. And then the produce is actually going back to where the checkout is. So they're making changes to each other. They're moving to each other's direction, each other's location. The existing toilets that are in the bottom left of the existing store are being relocated to the right rear of the new store and enlarged. Okay, so we'll have larger toilets for the customers. In the upper left of the existing stores, the bakery, that's going to be relocated to the lower right of the new store configuration, which is in the whole body space. Currently, there's prepared foods that's at the, I'll call it the rear of the store, the back of the store. That also is being relocated to the whole body area of the store right now. The seafood department is now being relocated back to bakery. So, you know, to summarize, there's,
All they're doing is, I understand.
the departments are still there, but they're being relocated in different locations.
Can I ask you a question to respond to Mr. Fox's question? Is there any proposal for any seating areas for diners in this new proposal?
Well, the outdoor.
Forgetting the outdoor for a minute.
No, the indoor does have a counter across the front of the store, though, and you can't see it in here, but there's
Well, I can
a
see
line.
a counter drawn there.
Yeah.
And what's that
There is no
counter?
seating.
But what's it for?
It would be for if you bought a coffee in the store and you wanted to have it at that counter.
Confirming your registers are going from 6 to 9?
1, 2.
Yeah.
It's 8 or 9, yes.
Okay.
What is that area to the upper right-hand corner of your vestibule that has sort of a circular, is that,
That's customer service.
what's that?
That's where the manager is and the people that can help you when you go into the store.
Is that an office or is that
No, it's an open counter.
open?
Currently, it's pretty much the same in the store right now.
Okay. That's a long counter across the whole front of the store. And are there any doors proposed? There can't be because the counter goes through the whole thing. So the only entrance into and out of the store is through the current vestibule, right?
Right.
That's correct. The vestibule's staying where it is, the entrance is staying where it is.
Okay.
Mr. DiBarbieri, in the expanded space, I guess it's the lower left-hand corner, looks like the prep line, or prep area. Two things. Can you explain to me what happens with the glass on the facade at that area and along that whole wall? Because it seems that you're building a lot against the outside wall, and I know there's actually a lot of glass there.
Yes, and I believe this elevation, again, it'll be hard to see from where you are, but we are keeping the glass. Where the doors are for the takeover store and for the whole body, they're going to be closed up and bricked, match existing, only at the lower portion, which is the bulkhead portion.
Yes.
The glass will remain there, so it will still have the same look as the storefront is now. One thing is, if you notice, we do have equipment up against the front of that, and what we will be doing there is for a portion of that glass, we'll be using a frost film similar to what already exists on the store, but it will still retain the storefront
Okay.
look.
Just moving up from that lower left-hand corner, there's, from the small-scale plan, there's two structures that are in the middle of the floor there. To me, it actually looks like a table with some chairs around it. Could you actually describe what those two pieces are?
What this whole thing is they're just expanding, they're enlarging their grocery store. That's the whole project.
I believe
We're spending an hour on this.
I believe if they have the location correct, those are the produce tables. As you come into the store now, you'll be going right into the produce aisle.
No, this is in the expanded area.
Oh, in the expanded
Here, I
area.
can show you right here.
What they're simply doing is enlarging the grocery space, that's all.
Those two? Let me just check one of them.
Take that.
I have a question on it. Is this the best professional thing we can do? Yeah.
There's two options that I think work. Traffic people decide which one to do. That's my feeling.
The landscape, nice.
Okay.
Okay, in that area,
I was looking at the exit.
our project managers confirmed to me that there's a olive bar, cheese tables, and 2 salad bars.
They're also telling us there's not a traffic increase.
And I think you can see that they're not really crammed in there. There's a lot of room around there. It's not,
What you're doing is you're expanding the grocery, that's all. That's the whole, okay.
and relocating, updating it, bringing in some features that have been
Great.
successful in other
Anything else,
stores.
anybody else?
Yes, I just wanted to go over this point with the parking. It seems to me that you have an opportunity to think about going for a variance and making the experience in the parking lot a little bit nicer. If there's something you can do to expand parking, it would go a long way to just easing the traffic and making it more simple to be there. Because it's a tight site, and this is a premier destination for a lot of people in town, and that would really make a real quality of life difference for everybody, including you.
But I think, Peter, under the current regulations, you can't do it.
Variance, he's talking about getting
A
a variance of
variance,
use.
I don't, okay, my own personal opinion. I mean, I wouldn't support that, because it's taking residential land and converting it to a commercial use.
I know, it's taking fallow land and using it for the benefit of everybody. And at some point, if they wanted to sell that parcel, it could become a residential again. But I don't see that as a barrier to doing something positive for the circulation.
It would be a
I don't
commercial
think
use in a
putting more
residential
parking out
zone.
there is
though.
going to inherently improve the circulation. The circulation problems on this site are at Route 1, the entrance and exit at that point. Going to the back of the lot would not improve circulation on this lot one iota, because I think you agreed that we would not have any traffic exiting onto Lenox Avenue. If you feel that commercial traffic should exit onto Lenox Avenue,
I think that the way that it works right now is okay. I just think that there are things externally that could make a big difference, helping with the turning patterns once you're. But as far as internally, you could create more of a little bit of some green islands and other things, and create a little bit more space between the parking instead of having a gang of parking, and move some of the parking to the interior of the lot, and it could be much nicer.
I think we need to wait to hear from ARC, especially with how much glass they're covering up. I think we need to hear from our traffic engineer. I don't see a real reason to close it tonight with these big issues.
I have a question about that, because what they're doing is enlarge the grocery store. That's what they've done. They have that part of the store. That store has always been occupied for other functions. So they have before us a slightly larger grocery store and an improved parking situation, two-way and so on, with more spots. What more do we want from them? I don't know what more we want from them. I think the argument Peter makes is a good one, except unless you can exit in some other place beside the post road, you lose the benefit. And if you look at the exit in the back here, now you're getting into residence more. But other than that, I don't know why we would hold this up.
Well, we have to wait for ARC.
For what?
ARC.
Yeah, I understand that.
And I think the concern is that on the post road, they're proposing to block up 50% of the glass. And I think
50% of the,
The storefront.
Of the storefront, they're going to close.
I mean, our next meeting is September 15th. Between now and then, they could go to the ARC, and we could get comments from Beta between now and the 15th.
And that's the thing is that, after we make the point about the parking and the circulation, we really should get some experts to weigh in and give us their thoughts on what's going on and how to minimize the impact all around of this being a successful site. So I would really like to hear from Beta, which plan works in terms of circulation. Looks like it looks better given the volumes. And then again, it's interesting, Donald, because you raise a good point. So it comes out as a small, like we're taking over 1,200 square feet, but really the whole store grows by, as Nancy has mentioned, 3,800 square feet. And then it also happens that it's basically a total remodel of the store that's going to change how it looks from the street. They're adding some, they have to address this issue with the tent because the tent is there, but it's also where their handicap parking is going to be. They look like they've got some outdoor dining included in it. There's sort of a lot of stuff that's happening on this site that I'd like to make sure we hear from ARC what Mr. Fox said.
Okay. But
I think
remember, if
we
it
have
was a toy store opening, we wouldn't even have it before us today.
But
Right,
the
but-
problem is that this site, and this is our job, this site is crazy busy. And everybody rolls their eyes in town when you talk to them about the
Okay.
circulation.
Well, let's
But
I think one of the,
review if we're going to hold.
We could,
Go ahead.
just to go over, it's all good discussion, and I personally would be fine if this was something that could be handled administratively if everybody wanted to close it. I would be happy to do that, because I think that these issues
Yeah.
can be worked out. But if somebody wants to go the other way, that's fine.
Let's hear from the public as well. I think we've got
Oh,
some.
wait a second, before, if we're going to, we
because-
will hear from the public if they want to talk.
I think, before we move on, I think
I just want to be sure, if we don't make a decision tonight, we give proper direction.
Oh, I think-
the applicant has given us,
What?
the applicant has given us tonight options for the restriping of this parking lot, which we all have agreed is less than stellar, and I would say unusable for some. We want our traffic people to take a look at this. And I think just in that issue right then and there is something why we should leave this open. Yes, ARC needs to look at it, and they'll have issues about that glass.
Okay.
I also believe that in looking at these options, the two that we're going to consider, give us another thing that I would like the applicant to look at,
Okay.
is that we have these void spaces that are now being created in the restriping. Can these void spaces be looked at for some kind of a landscaping?
Okay.
Creating islands where we can put in some trees and things. It's a sea of asphalt out there. We're getting a better situation. We're getting some more cars, and actually we're getting some areas that we could put in a little bit of curb and a couple of trees.
I
If
think,
that's a-
I think if we wanted that, we could just require it.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
Exactly, exactly.
I think
Well, see,
that's-
I think with that, you're looking at two different options, and I would like to make sure that whatever option that we have, something
Mr.
happens.
Maitland said he prefers the second option, which is the two-way.
Oh, no, I didn't,
Which one do you prefer?
I
Option
don't
one?
really prefer either one, frankly, whichever one the professional think is right. I think,
works.
I think the advantages of, there's circulation advantages, there's a chance to get some green space and so forth up here in the one that's really a bottleneck. Those spaces are kind of useless at the entry, and where you get rid of that, that's possible green space that would be an advantage. It could be planted there.
Okay, so what we're
But,
saying,
Both of them,
Okay.
either one of
so
them.
what we're saying in terms of direction, to summarize it quickly,
Car can't do that.
is the ARC, of course. And then secondly, what you can do with the parking area, which both Mr. Macri and Mr. Maitland said, to look
green it up.
further green it up and what have you.
And
Now,
Okay.
how
also-
big is because you're obviously going to, well, forget it. We'll do that
I-
another day.
Any
am
comment
also
from the public
curious,
now? The
Mr.
public want to say anything?
Yeah, and I have one more question, Mr. Brower. Mr.
go ahead.
Mr. Fox actually asked it. You're increasing the number of checkouts by 50%. Now, at present, I think there is usually only one open at the whole body when I've walked by it. So in your narrative, you say that it's a very small increase in the store volume, but the number of registers that are being added, and this was what Mr. Fox, I think, was asking you, say
But that
something
could be more,
different.
that could be more efficient.
It
Get them
could
out
be.
faster. You
It could be, but
can't
when
get
they
into
come
that.
back, I'd like to hear about that. Yes, we could, what's the volume impact?
I don't think it's 50%, by the way.
Say something.
It's not 50%.
No, it's not. I think it's,
From
because
6
there's-
to 9 is 50%. 50% of 6 is,
But there's
There's an
one
existing one
adjacent
in
to
the other store.
customer service.
I counted that one.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I get at least 7 here.
Okay,
And we-
I counted the customer service
okay.
one.
Well,
Plus, there's one in the whole body.
And the one in the whole body.
any comments to the public? Yes, go ahead. Come on up.
Ma'am, thank you for your patience.
My name is Bimini Hayes. I'm the current store
Uh,
team leader.
Ma'am, could you state your name first?
Sure, Bimini, Bimini Hayes, Hayes.
Did you get it?
I'm the current store team leader. There's a total of 11 registers within the store. A total of 11. There's 2 in Whole Body and there's 9 in the main market. And because of the way the store is wired, we can't have any more registers than that. So we go from 11 to 11.
Got it. Okay.
Okay?
Thank you,
You're
ma'am.
welcome.
Anybody else? Did you want to say something? Okay.
I have a,
All right, so we're going to leave this open.
Right,
Did you want to say
sorry.
something? Did you want to,
I just want to make a remark.
state your name for the,
I'm Dr. Carl Carlson, member of the RTM from District 1. I live 1 block away from this. And indeed, there is problem with traffic in this area. There is a very peculiar problem with the very top of Washington Avenue. That is supposed to be one way. And I find many cars come right over the post road and dive right through the one-way and right into the shopping center.
It's only
Any
one way.
traffic report needs to address
only
this
one way.
problem. I think it's probably more a police problem than it is yours.
there is.
There is, in the plans that I examined this afternoon, and I'm very cold on this, I saw a ancillary construction of a deck on the westerly end of the property. Perhaps that's not being addressed tonight. And I think there's supposed to be along Washington Avenue for something like 16 people to sit there. And I don't know how that's going to work out for Washington Avenue. And is it kind of an opening up of business on Washington Avenue itself? I would ask you to please pay particular attention to that and see how it works out. Washington Avenue is a zoning problem area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to leave this open.
Don, I actually have something that Chris von Kaiserling asked me to read into the record because he was unable to stay. He has had 5 points he wanted to make on this. He said, remove parking on both sides of Post Road in front of Whole Foods. Replace with 5-lane roadway with 1 turning lane in each direction. Rezone the part of the site that's in the residential zone on the southeast corner to a P zone, as was done in Cos Cob behind the post office. Add lost parking. Allocate some parking at Whole Foods for use by retail on north side of Post Road to replace lost street parking.
Okay, good.
There you go.
Thank you. Okay.
So we will, if I could just comment, Dr. Carlson's observation, I think was referring to a deck, outdoor dining that was approved for the restaurant
I knew I'd seen it.
at the far end of the site, so that's
That's
independent
for
of
the
that.
Hunan Grill or whatever.
Exactly.
But
Thank
you
you.
showed some outdoor parking on your new
Outdoor
proposal.
dining.
Dining. Thank you.
Not-
Outdoor dining. All parking will be outdoors. So as you know, that's not as of right or anything, that would have to be a special application to
They
get
have
outdoor.
those little tables there
Yeah.
now.
They
That's-
have the tables
they
there now.
Are
That's,
they approved?
I think this has been my interpretation that those would have been like the ancillary 12 seats but if that's something that we need to reincorporate.
seats that you would get for being a grocery store?
Well, retail food.
Retail food.
Okay, this is open. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
But I think anything that's outdoor dining, we don't, huh?
Yeah,
You need a permit, right?
yeah, you need a
Oh, okay,
permit.
that's fine.
Okay, so the tent, and that will be addressed.
Okay.
Okay. Last item is final site plan special permit, 301 Davis Avenue.